1, 2, 3, 4.
Four people walked into a meeting. Same room, same agenda, same AI rollout announcement. The boomer VP crossed his arm and said, "This is just another technology trend. We will see how it plays out." The Gen X director nodded and said nothing. She has seen 10 of these rollouts. She was already mentally calculating which parts she could quietly ignore. The millennial manager started asking rapid fire questions about job security, workflow impact, and the implementation timeline. The Gen Z analyst went completely silent. She had grown up watching technology reshape everything she thought was king. She was not dismissing the announcement. She was trying to figure out if she still had a future in this organization. The leader at the front of the room looked at all four of them and thought, "I said the exact same thing to all of you. How are we already this far apart?" I'm Sahar Andrade. This is AI Cafe Conversations podcast, the Friday article, Forbes article-like edition. And today I want to talk about what is actually happening in that room. Because it's not a communication problem. It's a nervous system problem, and AI just made it significantly harder. Let's go. 4 nervous systems, 4 threat environments. Here is the foundation. Every nervous system is shaped by the dominant threats of its formative years. This is not a personality theory. This is how the brain develops threat detection patterns. Boomers came of an age, in a word, where institutional loyalty was survival. You stayed with your company. You earned your place. You worked very hard. That's how we, for the first time, we heard the word workaholic. You proved your worth through consistency and endurance. The nervous system learned stability comes from systems. Disruption is a threat to everything you built. Gen X grew up watching those institutions fail, downsizing, corporate scandals, the promise of job security revealed as a story. The nervous system learned systems will fail you. Self-reliance is the only real safety. Skepticism is wisdom, not cynicism. Millennials absorbed 9/11 in their formative years and graduated into a collapsed economy. The nervous system learned even your best preparation cannot protect you from systemic collapse. Optimize for meaning because material security is not guaranteed. Gen Z. Gen Z grew up online through a pandemic. The threat environment was constant, ambient, and digital. The nervous system learned uncertainty is the baseline. Change is always coming. And institutions have never been reliable anyway. These are not communications preferences. These are survival architectures built over decades. And they do not stay home when people come to work. So, how AI hits each generation differently. Now let's bring AI into that role. AI is not a neutral announcement. It lands differently in each nervous system because each nervous system is filtering it through a different threat history. For the boomer VP, AI is a disruption to the systems that have held. His nervous system reads it as the thing I trusted is being replaced. His response is to minimize or dismiss, not because he's wrong about AI, because his nervous system needs to protect the structure that has represented safety for 40 years. And you might tell me, I'm a boomer and I don't feel like that. I'm a boomer and I actually like AI and apply it in everything I do. Why? Because when we talk about generations, the characteristic for every group, like either baby boomer or Xers or Y or Z, they are not engraved in stone. It doesn't mean that every single person in that group or that generation is exactly the same, is a twin. It doesn't mean that, because there are individual differences in every single one of them. And as human beings, we don't want to be put in a box. So I want to make sure that there are different degrees of action, interaction, threats and not threats levels in every single generation. It's not like a stamp machine where everybody is just the same. We have differences even within them, especially when it comes to baby boomer that are born very close to Gen X, or Gen X that are very born in very close proximity of the millennials, and the millennials to Z, and so on. Okay, that's where the term zillennials, for example, come from, or zennials come from. Okay, so I just wanted to make that disclaimer before we move forward. So this was the boomer. Now, for the X director, Gen X, AI is just the latest version of a system promising to change everything. Her nervous system reads it as, here we go again. Her response is skeptical compliance. She will implement what she's told and quietly adapt what does not work. Not because she is an obstructionist, but because her nervous system learned that systems always overpromise. Here we are. I'm a Gen X, and AI is a big part of my life every single day, every single hour, every single minute. So that's how I wanted to show the differences within every generation. For the millennial manager, AI is a direct threat to the meaning-based work she has built. Her nervous system reads it as, will I still matter here? Her response is anxious engagement, lots of questions, lots of seeking clarity. Not because she's difficult, but because her nervous system is trying to find the solid ground. For Gen Z analysts, AI is familiar technology in an unfamiliar power dynamic. She grew up with AI as a tool, but AI deciding her organizational future is different. Her nervous system goes into a freeze response. Silence. Compliance without engagement. Not because she doesn't care, because when the nervous system cannot fight or flee, it goes still. One announcement, 4 threat responses. 4 people who look like they are in different conversations because neurologically they actually are. What the leader in the middle can actually do. The standard answer to multi-generational conflict is communication training. Learn each generation's preference, adjust your style, bridge the gap. That is not wrong, by the way. It's just insufficient. Because communication preferences are downstream of nervous system state. You cannot communicate your way into safety for a nervous system that is running a threat response. The words land differently depending on the threat level the receiver is carrying. What actually works before communication strategy is co-regulation. Co-regulation is the neurobiological process by which one person's regulated nervous system helps another's settle. It happens before words, before strategy, before any generational communication framework you learned in a training. When you walk into a room regulated, you give every nervous system in that room a signal. Threat level is manageable here. That signal crosses generational lines. It does not require translation. That is what the brand line means. Leaders are a thermostat, not a thermometer. You don't read the room temperature, you set it. In practice, this means three things. First, name the different responses without pathologizing them. When you walk into a multi-generational AI rollout and say out loud, I know this lands differently for different people here, and I want to hear all of it, you give every nervous system permission to respond authentically instead of performing compliance. That sentence alone reduces the threat signal in the room. Second, slow the AI timeline to the pace of human integration, not the pace of the technology. The nervous system needs time to integrate change. When implementation moves faster than people can adapt, threat responses lock in. The boomer doubles down. The Gen X disengages. The millennial spirals. The Gen Z freezes. Slowing the pace is not weakness, it's leadership. Third, stay regulated in the room. This is the hardest one and the most important one. When 4 nervous systems are running 4 different threat responses simultaneously, the leader who gets pulled into reactivity amplifies every existing threat signal. The leader who stays steady, genuinely steady, not performed steady, gives every person in the room their best chance at thinking clearly. This is the work I do with executive teams through my proprietary BRAIN, BRAIN framework. 5 evidence-based principles that create the neurological conditions for leaders to hold diverse teams through change without losing the room. So, if your team feels like 4 people speaking 4 different languages every time AI comes up, you're not failing at communication. You're leading 4 different nervous systems through the same change. And that is a completely different skill set than most leadership training ever taught you. Not sure where you stand in all of this? Book a leadership clarity call, 30 minutes. No pitch, just clarity. The link for the calendar is in the notes. Share this episode with a leader who is trying to hold a multi-generational team through an AI rollout right now. They need to hear this. I'm Sahar Andrade. This is AI Cafe Conversation Podcast. See you on Wednesday. Before I go, show me some love. Save, share, subscribe, rate, comment on this podcast. I would really appreciate it. It makes us be distributed to more people. Thank you for your support and making us one of the top 2% global podcasts. I really appreciate it. We are the only podcast that integrates AI, neuroscience, and leadership together. Again, this is Sahar Andrade. Till I see you Wednesday. Peace out.
1,